There was a lot of talk this past year surrounding the Japanese film Drive My Car, and deservedly so. It's a 3-hour film about art, the creative process, grief, relationships, and regrets that would eventually go on to win the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film.
Drive My Car, Japan!
And that's all great, but honestly, I don't care about any of that right now, because I'm here to talk about what's maybe my favorite aspect of Drive My Car. The one aspect that's not mentioned first when talking about the film, but one that I've seen lots of people rave about online, especially from nerdy cinephiles. And it's that after a lengthy Act 1, where the characters, world, conflict, and tone of the story are established, the narrative shifts in a major way. And only then, 41 minutes into the film, the opening credits finally appear on screen. 41 minutes. Now, I love this kind of stuff in movies. But besides being obviously awesome and so damn cool, why did director Ryusuke Hamaguchi do this? What's the purpose? Well, let's back up a little bit. At its most basic, a title card and credits give the audience information. You have the title of the film, and the cast, crew, and production companies involved. Now, some directors may choose to put the title up front, or tack it on at the end like an afterthought. Maybe they don't want it to distract. It can easily pull the audience out of the story world and remind them that they're watching a movie. Christopher Nolan is known for opening or closing most of his films on title, and with the types of films he makes, with their unique and innovative worlds, I guess it makes sense that he wouldn't want to pull the audience out of that. Some directors may even skip the credit sequence altogether, and I think that's because a lot of directors see it as this necessary nuisance. For instance, in the film Apocalypse Now, director Francis Ford Coppola didn't want a title card or opening credit sequence, but apparently he was told that the film couldn't be copyrighted as Apocalypse Now unless the title was seen somewhere in the film.
An interesting thing, in my conception for Apocalypse Now, I wanted it to have no credits, no names and credits on it and stuff, and I didn't. When the film came out, there was just a program, but there was no credit sequences on the picture, but it had to have the word Apocalypse Now with a copyright sign on it so that it would be copywritten. And you'll notice on the wall it says our motto, Apocalypse Now. That is for legal purposes because there were no credits.
I've never understood the fear of waking your audience up to the fact that they're sitting in a chair and watching a movie. Of course they know that. For me, I love loud directors that leave massive footprints and remind me that they're there. Directors who wildly move the camera, the long, uninterrupted tracking shot, needle drop moments. I love that stuff. These are the tools to help tell your story in a unique way. Instead of being embarrassed about the title card or trying to avoid it, my favorite directors usually embrace it as another tool to their advantage. Consider the formal implications of placing the opening credits at this moment. They offer a clear boundary between Drive My Car's prelude and the remaining action, allowing the film to seamlessly pass through 2 years of time. So much of the story hinges on our understanding and experience of what transpires in those first 40 minutes. The opening credits leave room for needed pause and reflection. And perhaps most beautifully, the choice to roll the credits at the 40-minute mark draws attention to the length of the film itself. When the credits drop, it's as if Hamaguchi is saying, "Here is my film the way I want it. Haters be damned." The placement of the opening credits at that moment allows us to feel the intentional craft of Hamaguchi as a filmmaker. I like that term, intentional craft, because that's exactly what it is. Taking a tool at your disposal and wielding it in a deliberate way for a specific purpose. And when directors like Hamaguchi drop a title card or title sequence late in their film, you can bet there's a specific purpose to them breaking convention. It's another example of a loud director waking the audience up and making them listen to what they're trying to say. As the opening credits appear 40 minutes into this film, the viewer may realize that not everything is as it seems. In director Ryusuke Hamaguchi's hands, the delayed appearance of something as simple as a title card, a common feature in the beginning of films, pivots the viewer into a different kind of movie experience. The title card's placement denotes that everything before it was merely preamble, and that there is much more coming in this 180-minute runtime. The film moves at its own pace, it decides how much time is enough to convey its message, and miraculously, for a movie this long, it is never wrong with its decision. The movie is not a race to the finish, nor is it a road trip where you ask, "Are we there yet?" every 5 minutes. It's a smooth coast along a scenic road, driven by the hands of someone you immediately put your trust in. So we've seen how and why Hamaguchi used a late title sequence in Drive My Car, but now let's go wider and explore other films that have utilized the late title card and title sequence and try our best to categorize the intended purpose for each. But first I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Likewise TV. Here's some of the shows I'm currently watching right now: Barry, Atlanta, Better Call Saul, Ozark, The Legend of Vox Machina, Severance, and Bluey, because I have a toddler in my house. There's a ton of streaming services out there with new ones popping up every day. It makes it impossible to keep track of everything, and sometimes the vast amount of options just feels daunting. So when I'm clicking around trying to find something to watch, I end up frustrated and just watch a rerun of something I've already seen a million times before. I want to spend less time scrolling and more time actually watching TV. Likewise TV is a personalized hub that makes it simple to find what I want to watch. No more bouncing back and forth, opening and closing apps as I guess where I can watch something. For instance, say you want to watch Pulp Fiction, but have no idea where to find it. Just search the title, and the landing page will tell you everywhere you can currently stream it. Everything is now in one place on Likewise TV. I made a watch list with a few of the shows that I'm currently watching, so now I can click right on the platform to go to the streaming service it's on. Likewise TV will tell me when a new episode premieres, and it'll even offer suggestions for other shows I might enjoy. It's a clean and simple way to organize everything you love in one place, so you can stop wasting time mindlessly scrolling and get back to actually watching TV. And Likewise TV is completely free, so click over to likewisetv.com right now and start checking out everything they have to offer. First, I want to clarify the difference between a title card and a title sequence. A title card is just the title of the movie itself, whereas the title sequence includes other information like the cast and crew. The title sequence could include the title card, but it doesn't always. For instance, in Drive My Car, it's only the cast and crew that appear at the 40-minute mark, but the title card doesn't appear until the movie is over. For the purposes of this video, and to simplify things, I'm just gonna lump them together. So if I give the wrong term at the wrong time, please feel free to leave me a comment below that I will immediately ignore. Second, I want to reiterate that I'm only considering title information that appears somewhere in the middle of the film, not at the close of the film, like the Christopher Nolan films I mentioned, or, for example, Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. After a lot of research, I think the late title card generally falls into two main categories: prologue and the turn. Let's start with prologue. The prologue is used in order to establish the context of the story, giving background details and other miscellaneous information that the audience needs before the main story begins. The prologue comes at the very beginning of a film, separated from the main story, and the late title card is used here to reinforce that divide. It tells the audience that the prologue is over and the main story is now beginning. As I said, the prologue is giving the audience expository information, and that information usually falls into one or sometimes several subcategories: characters, world, conflict, tone, and lastly, action. Trainspotting drops you right onto the streets of Edinburgh, Scotland, and it's all through the lens of our cast of characters, especially Mark Renton, who narrates and talks us through his perspectives on life and heroin.
I chose not to choose life. I chose something else.
As we meet each main character, we see their personality traits through a game of soccer, or football if you're not an American swine, and each of their introductions is met with on-screen text of their name. We then get glimpses at their relationships and interests, like Sick Boy's obsession with James Bond, and we also get a glimpse at Mark's battle with heroin, which will become a through line throughout the entire film, when he says he's going to stop,
Never again, Swanee, I'm off the skag.
but then immediately confesses that of course he'll have more. And all of that happens in the first 6 minutes of the film before the title card finally appears. Trainspotting 2 actually has a similar intro, quickly catching us up on all the lives of our four main characters, where they've been, and where they're at now 20 years after the first film, before the title card comes in at around 9 minutes. The A-Team from 2010 has the same approach of introducing us to each member of the team, showing us how they're coming together, giving us glimpses of their background and personalities, with accompanied on-screen text of their names, all before the title eventually appears 21 minutes into the film.
This is not gonna taste good.
Now, these three films are an example of how to showcase an ensemble one piece at a time, showcasing who they are alone and who they are together. But the prologue can also be used to highlight just the main character, like Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network. Just through a simple conversation at a bar, we quickly understand everything we need to know about Mark.
You have finals clubs, OCD, and you need to see someone about it who will prescribe you some sort of medication. You don't care if the side effects may include blindness.
Final clubs, not finals clubs.
His intelligence, arrogance, insecurities.
You're gonna go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. It'll be because you're an asshole.
But the scene also gives Mark the motivation and fire for everything he's about to become and everything he's about to do in the rest of the film. A prologue that focuses on the setting in which our story takes place is important for a few main reasons. It can offer motivation for our characters, like in Hell or High Water, where we see a little spray paint on the wall and closing signs on nearby buildings that hint at the desperation bubbling underneath these West Texas desert towns. In Hugo, we're shown a unique world of 1930s Paris, where a boy lives inside a railway station. We see the inhabitants of the station through Hugo's peering eyes, like the shop owners and the station inspector. Scorsese uses long sweeping shots to show us every nook and cranny, every gear and cog inside this unique and magical world in which Hugo lives. On a side note, this doesn't really matter when you watch the film at home now, but when I watched it in theaters in its native 3D, Scorsese used the camera and sweeping movements to quickly get the audience accustomed to the 3D world they were about to watch for 2 hours. Probably still the best film I've ever seen in 3D. Sometimes the prologue can be purely expositional, used to catch the audience up on the world they're about to be dropped into. The Fellowship of the Ring is an excellent example of this. The prologue carries the audience through the history of Middle-earth, elves, dwarves, men, the forging of the rings, and the looming villain of Sauron, and the master ring he created, a ring that controls all others, its weight, power, and the ability to corrupt. And we then see the path of this ring, from Sauron to Isildur to Gollum, and eventually to Bilbo Baggins, all before the title appears 7 minutes into the film. 8 minutes if you're watching the extended version. Another example is 28 Days Later, where we're shown the origins of the Rage virus, how it was created, and what it's capable of before it's unleashed on London. Another element that 28 Days Later does really well is it quickly establishes the rules of this world.
They're highly contagious. They've been given an inhibitor.
Infected with what?
Rage.
It tells us how the virus is spread and how quickly it affects the victim. It's a terrifying hint of what's to come. And that's a vital aspect in films with unique worlds, especially in sci-fi, fantasy, or horror films that have specific rules and dynamics that the audience needs to understand. Pacific Rim uses the prologue to establish a world where kaijus emerge from beneath the Pacific Ocean to terrorize the planet, and how humans have bonded together to create Jaegers in order to battle them. And in Mad Max Fury Road, we're shown the desert wasteland of post-apocalyptic Australia, the creatures that inhabit such a hellish place, and what it takes to survive there. We're shown the infrastructures in place, like the vehicles they use to get around, and the caverns where the war boys take their captives to mark and label them for their resources. A prologue focused on conflict could also be referred to as the inciting incident, which is basically the event that launches the main character on their journey, which will take place throughout the narrative. This is usually through the introduction of the story's main villain or antagonist. In Rogue One, Jyn watches as her mother is killed and her father is captured by Orson Krennic and other members of the Empire. Streets of Fire has rock star Ellen Aim kidnapped on stage by the notorious biker gang known as the Bombers. In Zodiac, we get our first introduction to the Zodiac Killer as he murders Darlene and Mike at Lover's Lane in Vallejo, California. Both The Empty Man and 2009's Friday the 13th have really long intros that showcase the film's main villain. The Empty Man has a group of friends trapped up in the mountains by a snowstorm, and we watch as an evil spirit slowly possesses them, making them kill one another before the title card appears 22 minutes into the film. Friday the 13th has this hybrid that's part expositional, as a group of friends discuss the history and mythology surrounding Jason Voorhees and Camp Crystal Lake, but then shifts into conflict when Jason suddenly appears and starts killing everyone before the title appears at 23 minutes. These long intros highlighting the main villain almost feel like their own self-contained short stories. Return of the King feels different than the previous examples, but I think it still hits on similar elements of the conflict-focused intro that build up the power and mythology of the antagonistic force. Here we see the power of the One Ring, how it corrupted Smeagol, and now with Frodo in possession of the One Ring and Gollum serving as their untrustworthy guide to Mordor, we know the difficulties that lie ahead. Now, those are more clearly defined antagonists, but there are still some conflict-focused intros that are more abstract.
His only instinct to destroy everything he touches!
Lilo and Stitch builds up the possible threat of Stitch, or Experiment 626 as they refer to it, as a creature with unparalleled intelligence, strength, but also a propensity to cause chaos, before it escapes to Earth on a collision course with our protagonist Lilo. Inherent Vice opens with private investigator Doc as he's visited by his former girlfriend Shasta, who pleads for his help because she's gotten herself caught up in something dangerous. In Midsommar, we get a glimpse at Danny and Christian's dying relationship before she discovers that her sister killed her parents and then committed suicide through carbon monoxide poisoning, all before the title card appears. And in Vox Lux, a young Celeste manages to survive a school shooting, which will then help her launch her popular music career. Tone is an interesting subcategory of the prologue. These examples I'm about to mention could easily fit into one of the previous subcategories I already brought up. But the reason I put them here in their own subcategory is because I think tone is their primary aspect. Some films have a unique style, they might have a hybrid of genres, or break normal conventions through their use of aesthetic, dialogue, theme, pacing, or structure. With a prologue focused on tone, the director is quickly preparing the audience for what they can expect from the rest of the film. Drive is a perfect example of genre blending. Based on the trailer, you might expect it to be like a Fast and Furious film. From the beginning, you immediately get the sense that this feels like an LA noir heist film, but the added electronic music pulsing underneath, the stylized scorpion jacket, and the long bouts of silence hint at something else. And finally, when the opening credits hit at about 9 minutes into the film, with the 80s style synthwave music and neon pink font, the mash of genres becomes perfectly clear. The Coens have always been chameleons, morphing genres so effortlessly that it's hard to comprehend how the same people managed to make Fargo, The Big Lebowski, The Hudsucker Proxy, True Grit, and Inside Llewyn Davis. With each new film, the audience needs time to reset their expectations and figure out what they're about to get themselves into. Coming off their debut film Blood Simple, a dark neo-noir western, the Coens had a lot of heavy lifting to do in the prologue to their follow-up film, Raising Arizona. The opening 11 minutes tracks the blossoming romance of H.I. McDonough and Ed, the disappointment of them not being able to conceive a child, and the seed of an idea to steal one of the 5 children from the famous Arizona family. The entire prologue is told through this rapid-paced montage with the iconic soundtrack by Carter Burwell that highlights the screwball tone of the film. Spun is a movie about junkies strung out on methamphetamine, and so to get the audience inside the mind of the characters, the film is cut at a rapid, uncomfortable pace that really makes you feel on edge.
Get in here. Here we go.
At the time of its release, and maybe it's still true today, it held the record for most edits in a movie with 5,000. It quickly sets audience expectations before the title comes in 13 minutes into the film. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Tropical Malady and Uncle Boonme, who can recall his past lives, both by director Weera Sethekal, move at a quieter, more meditative pace. The cold open to Easy Rider is used to establish a larger theme of rebellion, as our two leads, Wyatt and Billy, are first seen smuggling cocaine, hiding cash, and throwing away their shackles to civilization, before hitting the open road on their motorcycles, as Steppenwolf's song The Pusher gives way to Born to Be Wild. Magnolia is another film that uses its prologue in order to establish its larger theme of chance that permeates throughout the rest of the film.
And I am trying to think this was all only a matter of chance.
It opens with 3 stories of freak coincidence in an effort to establish that in this world, these things happen all the time. Quentin Tarantino is known for having a style all his own, and a lot of that has to do with his stylized dialogue that's riddled with pop culture references and a playful back and forth banter reminiscent of screwball comedies from the 30s and 40s.
Want me to shoot this guy? Shit. You shoot me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize.
The opening to Reservoir Dogs takes a bunch of gangsters, puts them around a table at a diner, and has them talk about meaningless nonsense, like the meaning to Madonna's song Like a Virgin, names in an address book, and tipping etiquette. Pulp Fiction also opens at a diner with a young couple squabbling over the perfect place to rob before settling on the very diner they're currently sitting inside.
Any of you fucking pricks move, and I'll execute every motherfucking last one of you!
Character, world, conflict, tone. Some directors will establish 1 or maybe 2 of these elements before the title card appears, but I'm not sure anyone jam-packs as much information in such limited time more effectively than Edgar Wright.
Amazing.
In Shaun of the Dead, we're introduced to the main characters, the underlining conflict of Shaun and Liz's failing relationship, the rapid pace of gags.
It's not that I don't like David and Di, you know. Guys, it's not that I don't like you.
And as the opening title sequence plays, Wright foreshadows the threat of zombies that will soon run rampant in this world. In The World's End, Wright uses a flashback to establish the main characters, the small town where the pub crawl takes place, and Gary King's delusional state as he's failed to grow up and leave the past behind him. As the 8-bit graphics and retro video game quality music play over the studio logo, we instantly understand the tone of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. We know we're in Canada and that Scott Pilgrim is dating a high schooler. And in Baby Driver, we meet the crew of bank robbers on an opening heist, but more importantly than that, Edgar Wright quickly establishes that inside this world, music is the driving force underneath everything.
Bell bottoms! Bell bottoms!
It pushes the action along as people and items move in rhythm to the beat. There's one last subcategory in the prologue section that I haven't explored yet: action. This includes your tentpoles, summer blockbusters, and franchise films. Think Mission Impossible, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and James Bond. And that's exactly what I'll be examining in my next follow-up video, including the next main category of title cards, the turn. And that's where things get really, really weird. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and leave me a comment below. Tell me your favorite example of the late title card. Maybe there's one that I've missed, or maybe one that I included. Just some way if you could please engage with this video by liking, commenting, sharing with a friend. It really helps push the algorithm gods in the right direction and encourages them to share this video with other people who may otherwise not see it. Unfortunately, some of those people might be my own subscribers, since YouTube doesn't like to share my videos with them. Being a subscriber does help, but really the only way to kind of make sure you know when a new video comes out is if you click the bell icon below. So if you haven't done that already, please make sure you click the bell icon below. That way you won't miss any new video whenever it comes out. And that includes part 2 of the late title card series. Another good reason to subscribe is because I'm starting to engage more with my followers on there. I'm using the community features and just engaging with more of my subscribers. In fact, I even enlisted some help with my subscribers because I couldn't find the exact time code for when the title appeared in Midsommar. So I told people that whoever replied first with the correct time code, I would shout them out. So Cameron Stewart, thank you so much out there for your help with this video. And yeah, I'm gonna keep doing that, reaching out, asking questions, enlisting your help, getting your opinions on things. Another big thing I did was just asking for examples of late title cards. You people out there gave me so many good examples that I wouldn't have otherwise found on my own, so thank you so much. Another great way to engage with me is by becoming a patron. Patrons get exclusive rewards and behind the scenes content, early releases, as a thank you for helping throw $1, a few dollars per video a month that I put out. It really goes a long way. All of that money goes right back into the channel and helps me make better videos for you, the viewer. So thank you again out there for watching, and I will see you all in part 2 of my late title card series.